Hi, I'm Candy from Quilt Vine, and welcome to week 2 of the Quilt Vine Sew Along for our log cabin quilts. Now, actually this week I'm bringing you 2 videos because in our log cabin sew along we're doing a more traditional log cabin, and then we're also doing an improv log cabin. So this video is for the improv log cabin. Here are the fabrics that I'm using. They're scraps. They're like light greens and aquas and low volumes. And for my centers, I'm using some bright turquoisey kind of things. And here I have some hummingbirds that I fussy cut. So last week we only talked a little bit about cutting our fabrics, and we only talked about cutting our centers, and I said we were going to cut our centers various sizes and just cut some. So here's some small ones, and I also cut some larger, and I fussy cut some with the hummingbirds. But what I did today was I have 6 blocks that I did, and what I'm doing are 8-inch blocks, or actually they're 8.5-inch cut. I have a 8.5-inch square ruler, so that's what I'm using to cut my blocks. So as you can see here on this one block, for an example, it is not your traditional log cabin. I'm not going around and around. Here I started to, but then I didn't finish going around and around. It's just kind of very freeing, very just almost haphazard. Here some of my strips are smaller. Here I've got larger pieces. I think the whole idea with what I'm going for on this one is random. I just want a lot of variation. And I'm going to actually show you and demonstrate actually how I go about making one of my blocks, how I go about sewing and cutting. For my center, I'm going to start with a rectangle instead of a square. For this improv one, it just doesn't matter. My centers are not all the same. And I've just got a piece of fabric here, and I'm going to make sure this side is pretty straight. And I'm going to lay it along the edge there. I want a little bit at the top. I'm going to leave a little bit extra at the bottom. Just rough cutting it. I'm going to bring it over here and sew that seam. Now when I press them, I always like to press away from the center, so I'll press toward the fabric that I've sewn on. I'm going to trim it up, trim up the sides. And now I need to decide whether I want this piece that big. Probably not quite. I'm not going to measure it, but I'm just going to trim it down some. Now I'm going to pull another piece of fabric. And what I'm doing with this one is I don't even care. I'm not going light, light, dark, dark. I'm just pulling some. And these are scraps. And maybe now I'm not going to go working the whole way around. Maybe I'll go crossed. This piece is a little bit, it was a scrap left from another block. So the piece I've just sewn on, I'm going to press it toward that. Again, let's trim off the sides here. Now I need another piece. Okay, so I'm going to add a piece to one of the sides here. So I need a piece that's long enough. Here's a piece. So I'm just going to rough cut it again. And I want to keep going until it's bigger than 8.5 inches square, so I can trim it down. Okay, again, I'm going to press toward the piece I've just added. Trim the sides even. Now let's say if maybe I don't want a piece that wide. So I'll just trim it down. Because everything that I'm doing here is just very random. I'm not even worried about, my color placement. Once you fold your fabric for the improv one, it's not like it's where half is light and half is dark. I'm just mixing them all together. Of course, you could do them half light and half dark, but if you looked at my sample from the first week, the one where I have the orange centers, my fabrics are just all mixed up. Again, I need to trim my sides. Okay, I'm going to do something on one of these sides. I've been going with some of these smaller scraps that I've used previously, but let's say if I took a large scrap. Let's reach in here. I know something that's big. How about this sailboat? It's a big piece. So I just might want to, so what I'll do if I'm going to use a piece off of the sailboat is I might just cut off a string or a strip. I want it big enough, so I'm going to cut it, I don't know, 2.5, 3 inches. Let's go 3 inches. And throw the big piece back there. Now I've got this 3-inch piece to work with. I'm going to have it stick out up here and here, and then I'll trim it after I sew it. And I also might, if I weren't actually making the video and demonstrating for you, I would probably be working on several blocks at a time. Just because that, makes it go quicker. And press toward the piece I just added. Trim up the sides. I think the dog's dreaming. I don't know if you can hear him or not. Listen to him. Okay, I don't think I want it that wide, so I'm going to go ahead and just trim that down. And I might be able to use that again later. So let's see. Now, I did these two opposites and these two opposites. I could do another one here, but then that's too normal to be like courthouse steps. So I'm just going to add one. Let's add one on this side. Let's go, what fabric do I want? That one's not long enough. That one's not long enough. Okay, well, let's go cut down another big piece. Here's a nice long one. This is a nice subtle stripe. It's gonna be right next to that. Actually, let's do it on this side then. I don't want it next to this, so I'm gonna put it over here on this side. Fun watching me do a whole block, but I really don't know how else to show you how I do the improv, because it's really just very random. It's nice having the iron right here and the cutting mat right here. Everything's just right at your fingertips. Okay, so where should I add my next one? Okay, my blue is really close to this end, so I'm going to add one over here. I don't know. Let's go with this piece. It's a nice color. And make sure I cut it big enough. It's a little wrinkled. I'm going to press it first. Maybe give it a little shot of starch. Too big. Okay, again, let's press toward that piece I've just added. Now, look how wide that is there. Okay, that's wider than 8.5. Here's my 8.5. So I'm going to trim a little bit of this off. I want to keep it more than 9. I'm going to lay that there at 9. So let's go up here 9.5, and I'll trim it. So it's going to be about 9.5, and then we'll have plenty to trim off when we go trim it down to our 8.5. Now I'll take this, trim the sides even. Okay, so it's big enough this way, but I'm only a little past 6.5 this way, so I'm going to add one on this side. I don't know what fabric I want. Let's see if we get something else there with a little more color. I don't have a lot of color in this though, and I'm fine with that. It's what I wanted to go for. Here's a nice blue. It's very wrinkled. Let's give it a squirt here. Cut off the selvage down here. Take that extra up there. Okay, again, I'll give it a press. And let's see. bigger than 8.5. So since this is so big, I'm gonna have this over here as close as I can. Actually, before I start trimming it, I have this small mat here that's easier to rotate. So that's what I'm gonna do. All right. So I am gonna trim all 4 sides, so then I'm gonna end up with a really nice, perfect 8.5 inch square. Every one of my blocks will be 8.5 inches. And I'm going to save that because I might want to use that again. And there I have another block. So as you can see, these are my blocks I did. Okay? They're all very different. The only thing really is the same is my centers are nice and brighter compared to everything else. I like the centers to stand out. That's my preference. Okay. Some of them have bigger, wider pieces of fabric. Some have smaller or thinner. This one's got a lot more rounds because they're smaller. You can see there. So really the whole idea of this improv is just have fun with it. Anything goes. You don't have to measure anything. And what makes it all work is you trim all the blocks up for one size, and then they're easy to put together. Thank you for joining us, and let's have fun.